that you're entitled to a family life and can therefore stay in this country. So they're two rather conflated issues. But anyway, let's just go to Claire's question. Should foreign-born criminals be able to have their British citizenship revoked? Mark Littlewood.
Well, I bow to no one, I hope, in terms of my support for human rights and civil liberties. I used to work for Liberty, the human rights group. But I think in certain circumstances, the answer to this question is yes. I'm not saying there are no circumstances in which your citizenship should not be revoked. I mean, had, for example, Osama bin Laden qualified for British citizenship, presumably we would have sought to revoke it. Now, that doesn't mean that you kick people out of the country for being shoplifters, for sake of argument, but it does mean that there needs to be a test under which, in certain circumstances, if you were not born here and you have been granted British citizenship, it can be removed. And to the supplementary point, David, about what are the terms under which we can expel you from the country, again, I think that's a relatively high test, but I think that if you have earned British citizenship or you have qualified for it by means other than being born here, that you've actually been granted a privilege as well as a right. And I think that that privilege can and should be revoked in certain circumstances. You need to make sure it's fairly done, not arbitrary. I'm a bit worried about politicians making the decision rather than judges, but yes, I reckon if you're given British citizenship and you misbehave in a criminal fashion to an intolerable level, then it is reasonable to revoke that citizenship.
Emily Thornberry, your Shadow Attorney General, what do you make of it?
I was in Parliament today, and I have to say it was really confusing as to what on earth was going on. And we had amendments brushed up overnight, with them being announced in the Today programme. We had other amendments being handed in handwritten script. We had people in Parliament saying, I don't even know what we're debating. And people saying, oh, it's on this piece of paper. Well, where's the piece of paper? Oh, you have to go outside and get it. Well, if I go outside and get it, I can't be in the debate. And so it went on. We had the Home Secretary saying Dominic Raab's amendment was illegal as far as her advice was concerned from the Home Office. We had Dominic Raab saying that the Home Office advice meant that it was legal. We had the Prime Minister outside Parliament saying, oh, we'd like to support Dominic Raab's amendment, but he can't. And so it went on. And we had all of these different things piled in at the last minute.
Shouted, what did you think?
What I think is that, okay, so... The point I was trying to make was that the chaotic way in which it's being dealt with in Parliament today is not the way of dealing with it.
And what is your answer? What's your answer to the question?
Yeah, my answer is that people have different and competing rights, right? We have a Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is universal. It's in the title. And everyone should have rights, no matter how despicable they are, no matter how much we hate them, and so on. And they have certain rights. We have rights too. So we have the right to be protected against these people. They have rights to have a family life. And their children have rights to have a parent. So if I was the child of a foreign-born criminal, I would want my dad around. And the court would need to make a decision about whether my right as a child to have a dad was greater than someone else's right to be protected. And those decisions are made within the courts. What was trying to happen today was that what they were trying to do was they were trying to pass laws that would not allow the courts to make decisions. Now, it seems to me these are difficult and delicate issues that need to be debated carefully. And, and the chaotic way in which the government were doing it today was more about posturing and trying to get the right sort of headlines in a chaotic party that cannot hang together on this issue.
Right, just hang on a second. Theresa May was talking about terror suspects and stripping them of their citizenship. Where do you stand on that?
We don't know, right, at this stage, and what we've said is that we cannot have overnight this sort of clause being put before Parliament without us being able to look at carefully exactly what it means, right? We need to be, for example, does it mean somebody who was Somali born, who's come to Britain, who's got British nationality, who's gone off and fought for Al-Shabaab, who's come back and raised money for Al-Shabaab and then gone back to Somalia, and then we're trying to take away his citizenship? That might be one circumstance.
And would that be justifiable?
The point is, how do you pass a law?
Would that be justifiable? You've given a very good example. Yeah. Would it be justifiable in your view to strip them of British citizenship?
I think it's something that we need to think about, and we need to look... I think it's something something that we need to consider because of the right that we have to protect ourselves. But we need to make sure that when we pass laws in relation to issues as difficult as that, we get it right. And we don't just we don't pass something like the Dangerous Dogs Act, which we pass in a moment of, we've got to do something, and pass law which is bad. These sorts of rules are very difficult and have to be got right for the sake of all of them.
Matthew Oakeshott.
Can I just say, we've just had a very long and complicated example of how Labour, and it was even worse under Tony Blair, don't know where they stand on civil liberties. Especially, I'm not defending the position the Conservatives got themselves into today, where the Conservative Party had more positions than the Kama Sutra in Parliament this afternoon. We had Labour and the Liberal Democrats voting one way, the Tory government abstaining on something they said was illegal, and others voting against. So that was a mess. But I must say to you, Emily, it would be good if actually Labour could say more clearly which civil rights they believe and what they don't. I mean, this is very complicated.
We believe in the Human Rights Act that we introduced into law.
But you haven't still... I'm saying, as the whole audience can see, that you're spending a long time not saying where you are.
I'm trying to say
I'm fine.
difficult to
No, I'm not going to either, but I'm just saying you spend a long time talking about parliamentary procedure, which no one's interested in. And what I want to say is I think what people should know, that this particular proposal is actually not about the courts taking people's citizenship away in the courts, it's about the Home Secretary being able to take it away.
Are you in favour or not?
I'm very doubtful about it indeed.
No, are you in favour or not?
But also, no, I'm not, because I can also say that it's only as if people have made stateless, and this is just the sort of thing that comes out, I agree with them on this half-baked, that we in the House of Lords always have to look at very carefully and have a lot of amendments and a lot of protections.
Yeah, but hang on, I'd be brutal with you.
Yeah.
You teased her for not having a view.
Yeah.
What is your view on that issue?
I'm very sceptical indeed.
Sceptical doesn't mean anything.
Well, I don't...
Everybody's sceptical about things.
I'm not saying you can't...
Gave an example. She gave an example of somebody from Somalia who'd fought for Al-Shabaab, raised money in Britain, gone back to Somalia. In those circumstances, would you agree that British citizenship should be withdrawn? That was the question.
It could be, but you need a lot of safeguards. You need a lot of safeguards, and I do not want this done by the Home Secretary. I want it done in the courts.
All right.
Okay.
Kate Smith. Kate Smith.
Yeah, so first of all, I think this whole debate is horrible. If people commit crimes in this country, we should deal with them in this country. It's quite different if people want them extradited to go overseas. But what is our role as a responsible global player to be saying, oh, well, we don't like these people, so we're just going to send them out around the world? Secondly, there is something absolutely frightening in the language that I've just heard and in the language that Theresa May has used. 1 minute we were talking about foreign criminals, and the next minute we were talking about terror suspects. Well, you know what we shouldn't be deporting people for? As soon as we are deporting people because we suspect them of something that they have not been convicted of, then it is us who are the criminals.
Do you agree with that, King Clark?
Well, firstly, I think I'm very proud of this country's record on the rule of law and protecting human rights. And we take a very strong stand on human rights against dictatorial governments throughout the world. It would be quite ridiculous if we abandoned our standards in this country, saying that it was all for the Chinese, but it wasn't quite the same here, when we have people here. I wasn't in the House of Commons today. I was meeting with businessmen in Ipswich, so I shall catch up with events. If this comes forward as a proposal, I will recall that when I studied international law, my understanding was you could not make people stateless. You were not allowed to say you weren't going to take your own citizens back, and so on. So if this is actually a proposition that's going to be put forward and developed, I will consult my very good friend, the Attorney General, Dominic Grieve, and ask for his opinion, and ask him to satisfy me we were doing so in a way that was compatible with the rule of law. And I don't think he'd give a long, rambling, don't know, like his opponent.
He would have been able to read it through properly. He wouldn't have been expected on a basis of a couple of hours to be able to make, and that's what you were
I
doing
don't think
today.
you're- I don't think
I know
you're-
you weren't there, and
I don't think the only problem, Emily,
given
is
that
you-
you used to be Lord Chancellor. I mean, your advice today would have been quite welcome. I'm sure that the businessmen where you were speaking to today enjoyed your company, but it would have been good for you to have been in Parliament too, because today, frankly, the Tory party were in disarray.
Right. Well, Emily, I don't think your only problem was you didn't have time to read it. The obvious problem was you didn't know what to say.
No, we need to be... No. I made it perfectly clear that we need to have more time to consider it properly,
No.
and thank goodness in these circumstances we have the House of Lords that will have more time to be able to consider it properly.
All right, the woman up
You
there...
should not
all right.
be trying to pass legislation like
Well,
this as fast
but
as
my
you do.
understanding it was
It's
not
wrong.
it was
It's
not
wrong.
being proposed today. It was not put forward.
All right,
It was
let's
not
leave
going
the-
against
let's
the law.
leave-
It's a mayor mandate.
All right,
Thank you.
we'll leave the
if it's suggested- if it's
please, pray God, just leave the parliamentary proceedings while it's right, just for a moment, because we all know
That's the go.
yes, no, we all know that politicians can talk forever about that. It's so much easier than talking about the issue of principle. The woman up there.
I just wanted to say that firstly, I find it